When you think about goals, most people get excited at the starting line. They love the idea of starting something new. There's an energy when you're planning, when you're writing it down, when you're imagining how it will feel. But the real secret, the real power is not in the start, it's in the finish. Because finishing is where the transformation happens. Starting gives you hope, but finishing gives you proof. And proof is what changes your belief system. When you finish, you create evidence that you are capable, that you are disciplined, that you are strong enough to carry something through no matter how hard it got. See, there's hidden value in completion. Every time you complete something, even if it feels small, you're depositing into the account of your confidence. And eventually that account grows so strong, you don't second guess yourself anymore. Think about it. How many times have you started something and never finished it? A workout plan, a book, a side project, even a simple promise to yourself. Every unfinished thing leaves a little residue of doubt. You may not notice it, but in the back of your mind, it whispers, you didn't finish last time. Will you finish this time? And that doubt builds up. That's why finishing matters. Because when you cross that line, even if nobody's watching, you silence that voice and replace it with, I said I'd do it, and I did. The power of finishing isn't just about achieving a goal. It's about building trust with yourself. And let me tell you, when you trust yourself, you become unstoppable. Because now when a challenge shows up, you don't just hope you can do it. You know you can. You've got receipts. You've got history. You've got the experience of pushing through. That's what completion gives you. It doesn't just give you the result. It gives you the person you become in the process. And here's the crazy part. The world notices finishers. There are thousands of people with ideas, thousands of people with dreams, but very few who finish. The finishers are the ones who stand out, the ones who get opportunities, the ones who inspire others, not because they were perfect, but because they proved they could keep going when others quit. And that's a power you can't buy, you can't fake. It only comes from finishing. So don't just chase the excitement of starting something. Value the grind, value the discipline, value the finish. Because that's where the growth is, that's where the confidence is, that's where the power is. The hidden value in your life isn't in what you start, it's in what you finish. Momentum is one of the most powerful forces you can create in your life. But here's the truth, it doesn't show up at the beginning. At the start, it feels heavy. At the start, it feels slow. At the start, you're pushing against resistance, against doubt, against fear, against every excuse your mind can come up with. That's why so many people quit in the early stages. They think the struggle means they're not cut out for it. When in reality, the struggle is just the warm up. Momentum doesn't come from starting. Momentum comes when you finish. Every time you cross the line, you ignite something inside you that keeps rolling forward. Think about it. When you finish a workout, you feel like you can take on the world. When you finish a book, you feel smarter, sharper, more disciplined. When you finish that tough project, suddenly you're not just ready for the next one, you're hungry for it. That's momentum. It's the energy that completion creates. It's like fuel for your soul. The more you finish, the more energy you generate, and that energy carries you into bigger and bigger challenges. The reason so many people stay stuck is because they live in cycles of starting and stopping, starting and quitting. They never get to feel the rush that comes from completion, so they never experience the momentum that could carry them further. They burn out at the beginning because they never gave themselves the chance to feel the payoff at the end. But once you finish something, even something small, you tap into that force. You realize, wait a minute, I can do this. I did it once. I can do it again. And suddenly you're not dragging yourself forward. You're being pulled by momentum. That's why it's so dangerous to let yourself quit. Because every time you quit, you rob yourself of that energy. You cut yourself off before the breakthrough. You stop before the rush. And so you're left having to start over and over, and each time it feels heavier because you've got no momentum pushing you. But the moment you complete one thing, the moment you see it through, you break that cycle. You set something in motion that makes the next finish easier, faster, stronger. And here's the beauty of it. Momentum compounds just like interest on money. The more you build, the more it grows. What was once hard becomes automatic. What once felt like a mountain starts to feel like a stepping stone, all because you chose to finish and let momentum do the work. So don't think the reward is only in the achievement itself. The reward is in the momentum you gain when you finish. That momentum is what will carry you past obstacles, past fear, past every reason to quit. Finish strong because momentum is built at the finish line. Discipline isn't built in the moments when it's easy. It's not built when you feel excited, motivated, or when everything is lining up perfectly. Discipline is forged in the fire of finishing. When you push yourself to complete something, especially when you don't feel like it, you're training your mind and your body to understand that your word is law. That's what finishing does. It conditions you to be consistent, to push through discomfort, to stay locked in even when distractions and excuses are screaming at you. Every time you finish, you're reinforcing discipline. Think about it. Anybody can start. Anybody can get hyped up for a week. But when you finish, you prove that you've got the control to manage your time, your energy, and your emotions. You prove that you're not living off feelings, you're living off commitment. And that kind of discipline will outlast motivation every single time. Motivation fades, but discipline carries you through the days when motivation is nowhere to be found. The power of finishing is that it gives you a standard. It sets the tone for who you are. If you're the kind of person who only starts but never finishes, you're training yourself to be okay with quitting. But if you're the kind of person who sees things through, you're training yourself to respect your own word. And that's critical, because if you don't respect your own word, why should anybody else? Discipline is the bridge between your promises and your reality, and finishing is what strengthens that bridge. Here's the truth: the world doesn't reward starters, it rewards finishers. Not because starters don't have talent, but because finishers have discipline. They've shown that they can stay the course, handle setbacks, and keep moving forward without giving in. That kind of discipline spills over into every area of life. If you can finish your workout plan, you can finish that business plan. If you can finish a commitment you made to yourself, you can finish the commitments you've made to others. Discipline built in one area always multiplies into another. But discipline doesn't feel good in the moment. It's uncomfortable. It requires sacrifice. It demands you do things you don't always want to do. Yet the beauty of finishing is that it teaches you to embrace that discomfort instead of running from it. When you finish, you learn that pain is temporary, but quitting lasts forever. You learn that the feeling of pushing through will always outweigh the regret of walking away. That's the lesson discipline gives you, and finishing is the classroom where you learn it. So if you want to develop real discipline, stop leaving things half done. Train yourself to finish, even when it's tough, even when it's inconvenient. Because the discipline you build through finishing today is the very discipline that will carry you to every dream you've ever had tomorrow. Finishing builds unshakable discipline. Everybody wants the big victory, the life-changing moment, the massive breakthrough that makes all the struggle worth it. But what most people don't realize is that big victories are built on the back of small wins. It's not one giant step that gets you there. It's 1,000 little steps taken over and over again. And every time you finish one of those small steps, every time you cross off a goal that may seem minor, you're training yourself to believe in something bigger. You're stacking proof, and that proof is what gives you the courage to go after more. The truth is, most people overlook the small wins. They want to skip to the finish line of the marathon without running the miles in between. But it doesn't work like that. The small wins matter because they create momentum. They build consistency, and they prepare you for the bigger challenges ahead. Think about it: when you finish a small task, making your bed, completing that workout, sticking to your schedule. You might not think it's life-changing, but what you're really doing is sending a signal to yourself: I keep my word. I follow through. I finish what I start. That signal is powerful because it rewires the way you see yourself. Every small finish creates confidence, and confidence is not built on theory. It's built on evidence. If you tell yourself you're disciplined but never finish anything, deep down you know it's not true. But if you finish even the smallest commitments, day after day, you start building evidence that you are someone who follows through. That evidence grows into confidence, and that confidence fuels bigger and bolder moves. That's how small wins turn into big victories. It's like lifting weights. You don't walk into the gym and put 300 pounds on the bar on your first day. You start with what you can handle. You finish those reps, you build that strength, and over time, what once felt impossible becomes routine. The same is true with your goals. Finish the small things, stack them daily, and one day you'll look back and realize those small wins carried you to the massive breakthrough you were chasing. The problem is, most people dismiss the small wins because they don't feel glamorous. They think if it's not big, it's not worth it. But the reality is, if you can't finish the small, you'll never finish the big. The habits you build in the little things are the exact same habits you'll use to tackle the bigger challenges. Every win matters because every win builds belief, and belief is the fuel for achievement. So don't underestimate the power of finishing small goals. Don't think they don't count, because every small win you stack is like laying a brick, and brick by brick, you're building the foundation for the life you've been dreaming about. Small wins lead to big victories. Confidence doesn't come from thinking about what you could do. It doesn't come from wishing, hoping, or telling yourself you've got potential. Real confidence comes from proof. And proof comes when you finish. Every time you complete a goal, whether big or small, you're closing the loop and sending a message to yourself that says, I can be trusted. I follow through. I keep my word. That's where confidence is born, not in the idea of doing, but in the act of finishing. The problem is, most people try to build confidence backwards. They think they have to feel confident before they act. They think they need the perfect mindset, the perfect plan, or the perfect moment to finally move. But the truth is, confidence is built after the action, not before. When you finish something, even if it's small, you now have evidence. You can look back and say, I did that. And when you've got proof of past success, you don't step into the next challenge with doubt. You step into it with certainty. Think about it like this. Imagine two people preparing for a marathon. One person has been talking about running for years, but never finished a training plan. The other person has consistently finished their daily runs, their weekly mileage, their smaller races leading up to the big event. When race day comes, who has the confidence? Not the one who talked, but the one who finished. Because confidence isn't in the words, it's in the receipts, it's in the history of completion that tells you you've been here before. You've put in the work, you've got what it takes. When you don't finish, you waken that trust with yourself. Every unfinished goal plants a seed of doubt, and those seeds grow into hesitation, fear, and second guessing. But when you finish, you uproot that doubt. You replace it with conviction. That's why finishing matters so much. It doesn't just give you the result, it changes the way you see yourself. And how you see yourself determines how you move in every area of your life. Confidence is not arrogance, it's not pretending. It's quiet assurance that comes from knowing you've done the work, knowing you've proven it to yourself. That kind of confidence is unshakable because it's not built on hype, it's built on evidence. And the only way to build that evidence is to finish. So don't chase the feeling of confidence and wait for it to show up before you move. Chase the act of finishing, because the finish is where confidence is created. And once you've got that confidence, there's no challenge too big, no dream too far, no obstacle strong enough to stop you. Confidence comes from closing the loop. Procrastination is one of the biggest thieves of power. And most people don't even realize how much it robs them. Every time you delay, every time you push something off, every time you leave a goal half finished, it doesn't just sit there quietly. It takes energy from you. It takes space in your mind. It lingers in the background like a weight you're carrying, and the longer you avoid it, the heavier it gets. You may not see it physically, but mentally and emotionally, it drains you. That's why some people feel tired all the time, not because they're doing too much, but because they're carrying too many unfinished things. When you procrastinate, you give power to your doubts and excuses. You let hesitation sit in the driver's seat, and the longer you wait, the harder it becomes to get moving. It's like pushing a car that's stuck. If you push right away, you've got a chance to move it. But if you wait and let it sink deeper into the mud, it becomes almost impossible. That's what procrastination does. It makes every unfinished goal feel bigger, scarier, harder to start again. And the truth is, most people don't quit because they can't finish, they quit because procrastination made the finish line look too far away. Finishing, on the other hand, gives you clarity. When you complete a task, no matter how small, it frees up mental space. It releases that pressure. It gives you energy back instead of draining it. You stop thinking about what you should have done, and you start building on what you've already done. That's the shift that creates momentum and confidence. The act of finishing gives you power because you're no longer stuck in limbo. You're moving, and movement is where growth happens. The danger of procrastination is that it tricks you into thinking you have time. It tells you, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll get to it later. But later becomes weeks, weeks become months, and months become years. Before you know it, the opportunities are gone, and all you're left with is regret. But finishing doesn't let that happen. Finishing forces you to seize the moment, to act now, to take control instead of waiting for the perfect time that never comes. When you break the habit of procrastination by finishing, you take your power back. You silence the noise in your head. You prove to yourself that you don't need to wait for motivation. You don't need the perfect conditions. You don't need permission. You just need to do it. And once you've done it, the weight lifts, the energy comes back, and your focus sharpens. That's the gift of completion. It gives you back everything procrastination tried to steal. So stop letting unfinished goals drain you. Stop giving procrastination power over your life. Choose to finish because procrastination steals your power, but finishing restores it. Success is not built on talent alone, and it's not built on one big breakthrough moment. Success is built on consistency. It's the ability to show up day after day, to finish what you start, even when the excitement is gone and the work feels ordinary. That's what separates the people who dream from the people who achieve. Consistency may not look glamorous, but it's the quiet force that compounds over time and produces extraordinary results. The reason finishing is so powerful is because every finish reinforces consistency. When you complete a goal, you're proving to yourself that you can stick with it, that you don't just rely on feelings or moods. Anybody can work hard when they're inspired, but consistency shows up when nobody's watching, when the task feels boring, when the reward isn't immediate. That's where finishers shine. They understand that it's not about perfection. It's about persistence. It's not about how you start when you're motivated. It's about how you finish when motivation is gone. Think about the people who succeed at the highest levels. Athletes, entrepreneurs, leaders, they're not successful because they were always the most gifted. They're successful because they built a rhythm, a pattern, a lifestyle of finishing. They didn't just work when it felt good. They built habits that made finishing non-negotiable. That's why they win, and that's why they keep winning, because consistency turns effort into excellence over time. The truth is, inconsistency kills more dreams than failure ever will. Starting and stopping, chasing perfection and quitting when it gets hard, that cycle robs people of their potential. But when you choose to finish consistently, even if the result isn't perfect, you're stacking victories. You're building momentum. You're teaching yourself that showing up and completing the work matters more than waiting for the perfect conditions. That mindset is unstoppable because it means you'll keep growing no matter what. And here's what most people miss. Success doesn't require you to be extraordinary every day. It just requires you to be consistent enough to let the small wins add up. Finishing regularly, even if the outcome isn't flawless, will always beat the person who only moves when everything lines up perfectly. Because by the time they're waiting for the right moment, you've already finished 10 things, learned from them, and moved on to the next. Consistency multiplies your opportunities, while inconsistency keeps you stuck in the same place. So don't chase perfection. Don't wait for the stars to align. Chase consistency. Commit to finishing, no matter how small, no matter how imperfect, because that's what success is built on. Success loves consistency. Ideas are everywhere. Dreams are everywhere. Every single person you meet has something they want to do, something they've thought about, something they've talked about. But here's the reality. Ideas don't change lives. Finishing does. There's no shortage of dreamers in this world. What's rare, what's powerful, what's respected are the people who actually finish. The people who take that dream, put in the work, fight through the setbacks, and see it all the way through. That's what separates the crowd from the few. Finishing is the great divider because dreaming feels good. It's exciting, it's safe, it doesn't cost you anything. You can sit around and imagine success all day, but finishing requires sacrifice. It requires discipline. It requires you to keep showing up long after the excitement has worn off. That's why not everyone does it. Most people stay in the comfort of dreaming, but the ones who finish step into a whole different category. They move from what if to I did, and that shift is everything. The finishers are the ones who make impact. They're the ones who inspire others. Not because they had the best idea, but because they had the courage and the commitment to complete it. The world doesn't remember the projects you thought about or the goals you almost achieved. It remembers what you finished. That's where legacy comes from. Nobody celebrates someone who almost crossed the finish line. The power, the respect, the transformation, it's all in the completion. And here's the thing. Finishing doesn't just affect you. When you finish, you open doors for others. You create opportunities that didn't exist before. You show people what's possible when you refuse to quit. That's why finishing carries so much weight. It's not just about the goal itself. It's about the ripple effect it creates. Your ability to finish can impact lives you may never even meet. Dreamers talk, but finishers do. Dreamers imagine, but finishers execute. And once you've proven you can finish, you separate yourself from the majority. You put yourself in a category that the world can't ignore, because finishers change the game. They don't just create ideas, they create results. And results are what build trust, what build influence, what build legacy. So understand this, it's not enough to dream, it's not enough to start, it's not enough to talk about what you could do. If you want to create real change in your life and in the lives of others, you have to finish. Because finishing is what separates dreamers from achievers.